This time I'm going to show you how to make a floating necklace using the plastic coated wire. So as we said before, you can't knot this, so we use crimps to fasten it. There's a couple of different ways of doing the crimp, so I'll show you the different ways as we're making the necklace. So I've got the plastic coated wire, I've just got some silver here, obviously you can use any colour. And I tend to start in the middle when I'm making these. I find it easier to start from the middle and kind of work out either side, so you make sure it's sort of relatively symmetrical. So I'm going to start by putting a crimp on. These are these tiny, tiny little metal beads. So I'm going to put one of those onto the wire first. So they are absolutely tiny. Okay, and slide that down to the middle of my thread. Now I've got the crimping pliers here. When you look at these actually closed, there's two different gaps in them. One is just a plain oval shape and one is kind of kidney shaped. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this crimp in the kidney shaped hole and squash it. And what that does, it sort of squashes it but kind of curves it slightly at the same time. Then I put the crimp in the oval shaped hole and that sort of continues that curve and actually folds the crimp in half. So you've got a nice neat crimped finish. So first of all, it's the kidney bit. So it's just getting it positioned in the right place and giving it a good squash. And so that starts the procedure off. I'm then going to turn it 90 degrees before I put it in the oval shaped hole, because that gets it positioned right to then fold that crimp to finish. So I put it in there, squash that one, and you can see we've got a really nice neat little crimp there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put the bead on and then show you the crimp on the other side as if I'd done it just with the flat pliers. So I'll pop that bead on there. Slide it down and you can see that crimp stops it from moving. So on the other side I'm going to put another crimp, slide that all the way down, and this time I'm just going to use the flat pliers just to show you the difference in those. So I'm just going to slide that up to the bead and just squash that with the flat pliers. Now I don't know if you can see from there, but the one on my left is much sort of flatter and longer than the one on the right, which is folded and more neat. So that just gives you an idea of the two different looks where they're using the different pliers. Now on either of these, I normally put a crimp cover over the top just to make an even nicer finish, because particularly these ones that are just squashed with the flat pliers are quite sharp and scratchy. So these little crimp covers are really just like a little silver bead that's not being closed up, like a hollow little bead that's not closed up. So what I'm going to do is actually sit the crimp inside that crimp cover and just use the flat pliers this time, just to squash that around the crimp. So then you've got that nice little bead look rather than a scratchy crimp. I shall put one on the other side in just the same way, so it doesn't matter which way you've done your crimp to start with, the crimp covers go on in the same way. I find that it often works if I sit my crimp cover actually on my bead mat and actually sort of push the crimp down into it, because they are quite fiddly. That one keeps moving, we will get there. And push it in. Oops. I've actually squashed that one out, not on the crimp, so I'm going to have to get another one. Rather than try and open it up, I'm just going to get another one and do that. There we go, that one's better. So that one stayed in place. So you can see that that holds that bead securely on that wire. And we're just going to work our way around and do a few more. So I'll put a crimp on first and slide that down. Now the spacing between the beads is entirely up to you and how you want the finished item to look, but I just do it by sight, but you could measure them if you want to get them all the same. So again, I've just squashed that one flat. I'm going to put that inside the crimp cover and squash that flat. Hopefully you could see that one a little bit better that time without the bead. Pop another bead on. And then another crimp. Okay, I'll do this one again with the flat pliers, and then the next one I'll show you again with the crimping pliers. So get them all up nice and snug, give it a squash, and then put another crimp cover over there. As you can see now that they're all nice and secure on there. So I'll do one on the other side, again just to show you the crimping pliers. Whoops, there we go. Slide that one down. So, as I was saying, you start off by doing the kidney-shaped part of it, So sit the crimp in there, give it a squash, and then I turn it 90 degrees and put it in the oval space, and that just folds it in half and squashes it. I mean, with the folded crimps done like that, I mean, you can do it without the crimp covers because they're not as sharp as the ones done just with the flat pliers. Oops, I'll get that one in there. So again, just sit it in there. There we go. And give that a squash. And we'll put another bead on that side. Now you can see there, actually this one hasn't gripped. I'll come back to that one. That was the one I had some difficulty with, so I'll come back to that one in a minute because it's actually not gripped around the crimp properly. So slide it on, squash it flat, and then put the next cover on. Okay, so this one I'm just going to take off because it hasn't actually gripped. So take that one off, discard it, and try again. There we go, that's better, that's more secure that time. As you can see there, we've got those beads all floating on that necklace. You can do as many as you like. You can see there's single beads all the way around there. I've got one there just to show you a different idea where you could put little groups of 3. Odd numbers tend to work better, sort of 1, 3, 5, I find often, rather than even numbers. You can alternatively here, I've done 3 strands of different types of beads just to give it a fuller look. Now when we get around to the back of this to put the clasp on, as I say, we can't knot this. So the way to put the clasps on these, we use the crimps again. So I'm going to put a crimp on first. Then I'm going to put 1/2 of my clasp just through the loop. And this time I'm going to take the end of the wire and I'm going to go back through the crimp. So you end up with it kind of in that way. So you go through the crimp, through the clasp, and then back in the opposite direction up through the crimp. And again, squash it flat and put a crimp cover on it, because these ones around the back of the neck can be the ones that do get a bit scratchy. So squash that on there. And then you just trim the tail end off. So I'll do that again on the other end. So you pop a crimp on there. The other half of the clasp, again I'm just using a toggle clasp here. And then back through the crimp and slide it down. Squash it, and then we'll put a crimp cover on it. And these really are very secure. I mean, if you've got a very heavy glass necklace, these will be strong enough to hold it without any difficulty. There we go. So again, you just trim the tail ends off and then you can do your clasp up. There we are, all finished.